Hi everyone, this is Moose from the MTM program. We'll be starting in just a minute. Hello everyone, this is Moose O'Donnell with the Master of Translational Medicine program, and I'll be getting started now. One of the things I just want to flag for people who are logged in the internet is that we're not going to be able to take live questions. So please use the chat feature. Please use the chat feature as we go along. If you have questions, particularly like technical questions, you can type those in the chat as well. I'll be looking at them. But let's get started. I see someone saying that they're unable to see anything on the screen. There should be an image on the screen. Let me know if anyone else is having that problem. Please let me know as well. And if it's just one person, it may be better to log off and log back in. Let me give you an idea of what we're going to try and accomplish today. Is really to give you an overview of the program. So the MTM program is a relatively unique educational experience, and so I know that a lot of students have questions. What the program will be like. You want to know what sort of students are in the program. You want to understand what capstone projects will be like. These are major questions, I understand. And then, of course, everyone wants to know how admissions works and how to get in. And then, of course, people want to know about alumni and where to go afterwards. And, of course, to find more information on this, the website there is uctranslationalmedicine.org. Okay, more people without images. Can someone, if anyone does see images, can you let me know? Because I have... I'm seeing them on my second computer. Okay, so some people can. I would suggest if you can't to log back in and give it a try. And one of the things, as I mentioned before, there are at this point about 50 or 60 people logged in here, so we can't simply open the microphones and say, hey, does anyone have any questions? So use the chat feature. There are a number of students who are logged in, and they'll be able to chat answers to your questions while I'm babbling on. So that hopefully will make it more efficient, and you'll be able to get answers. And then, if any of the students or alumni who are on the call would like to add something by voice, please use the hand raise feature, and I'm happy to open your microphone, and would love for people to hear what you have to say. So first of all, introduce me. I'm Moose O'Donnell. I'm the Executive Director of the MTM program, and I really coordinate lots of aspects of the program. I of course, as you can tell, I'm in charge of the recruitment of students and the admissions of students. I coordinate with our faculty to make sure that the courses are getting delivered. I work with our alumni for various events to make sure that everyone's able to use the MTM to their best advantage, and work with a lot of our outside partners to help deliver the projects that we have, the projects that we offer. So we're also being joined, as I said, by students and hopefully some alumni who can share their stories as well. So first of all, what is the MTM? And you see on our website that we're a joint program between Berkeley and UCSF. And that is both an amazingly powerful thing and also a source of, I won't deny it, a source of a bit of frustration for some. Berkeley obviously is one of the top engineering schools in the world, and likewise UCSF is one of the top medical schools in the world. So students in the MTM program are truly joint students. They're enrolled at both universities and can take advantage of the resources of both campuses. You can call up faculty at either campus and say you're a student there. You can get access to the library resources and all of those pieces. And the way it works in practice is that most of the elective classes that students take, there's simply more classes available at Berkeley. It's a teaching institution with 35,000 students, so there are lots of classes that students take here, especially as we'll talk later when we talk about the curriculum. UCSF, on the other hand, is a much smaller school. There's only a few thousand students there, but what it has is really deep integration to the clinic. Our students are able to take advantage of the clinical resources that are essential to making translational medicine happen. And there are logistics issues with being a two-campus system. Students do have to be at both campuses. In fact, generally they're there on each campus at least a couple times each week. And so that leads to commuting issues, and it does make the entire program feel intense. But it also comes with a lot of resources. And just for perspective, UC Berkeley is under the E in Berkeley, is where the campus sits. UCSF is in sort of the middle of the bottom peninsula of land. This is an aerial view. And it's about 13 miles if you don't mind getting your feet wet, but realistically, by crossing bridges and taking trains, it takes about an hour to get from one campus to another. But let's take the high-level view and think about what is translational medicine. So what we intend translational medicine to be is to explain the process whereby innovation that happens in academic labs gets translated into something that really influences clinical medicine. So there's a lot of thinking of, you read in press reports out of the Berkeley press office about this or that innovation that is really going to revolutionize medicine. And a continual problem is that 5 years after that press release, medicine has failed to be revolutionized. And that is because the actual nuts and bolts of how ideas turn into something that influences patient care is fraught with twists and turns. It's very challenging. And so the goal behind this program is to ease that pathway by teaching students about the twists and turns ahead and to make them more effective at the translational medicine process. We do that through a specialized curriculum, which the spacing on the words is a little bit messed up, but that word is bioengineering. So about a third of the curriculum is technical electives, broadly grouped under bioengineering. We also have a quarter of the curriculum is clinical needs and strategies. What is involved in making changes in clinical medicine? And then we have a large component of business and entrepreneurship, because fundamentally, one of the things that helps drive innovation into the clinic is if there's a compelling financial reason for it. And then sitting on top of all of these is the capstone project that I'll talk about later. And one of the nice things about the capstone project is it really does integrate with the other aspects of the program. So, for instance, there might be a module on, there's modules on, sorry, some people just walked in. There's modules on regulatory strategies. But rather than working just on the regulatory strategies on a hypothetical example, students will perform an analysis of the regulatory aspects of their particular project. Similarly, with intellectual property work, people are linking that specifically to their own project. And so the capstone serves really as the centerpiece for everything that students are doing. And that's a powerful piece of making this project not just one thing you do after your class, but really a component of everything, of all of the learning that goes on in the program. Now, the business and entrepreneurship takes advantage of a lot of the resources that Berkeley has to offer. And one of the things we do is we collaborate with the Fung Institute for Engineering Leadership, which is a part of the School of Engineering at UC Berkeley that offers a Master of Engineering program. And we work with them to offer the MTM students a leadership boot camp. This is designed to be a miniature executive MBA, where students learn things like marketing, organizational behavior, strategy, negotiations, a lot of things that make the difference between just working on a project and having the high enough level view that you can help run the project. And so that's one of the collaborations with the Fung Institute that our students take advantage of. Now, the Fung Institute, and just to dispel some confusion that gets out, is they offer a Master of Engineering in several disciplines, including bioengineering. So this is a source of confusion for students, where they see a Master of Engineering in bioengineering and a Master of Translational Medicine within bioengineering. And the difference that is really, the most relevant difference is if what you're interested in is trying to influence clinical medicine, the translational medicine is the only one of those degrees that actually has strong connections to a hospital and to MDs and to people who are working with patients. And so some of the MN projects do, some of the MN projects do things that are very relevant to healthcare, but they don't have the institutional link to the clinic that the MTM does. So those boot camps form the start of each semester. So here's an overview of the program that's supposed to say intense here on 2 campuses. What you see is yellow is the courses at UCSF and blue are the courses at Berkeley. And one thing I again won't lie, it's a little bit of a logistics challenge, is Berkeley is a semester school. So there's 2 15-week semesters, while UCSF is a quarter school and has 3 10-week quarters. This is I don't say is a feature, but it is the way it is. And the boot camp starts before the fall semester starts at UC Berkeley, so that's in middle of August. And then there's about a month where you're only taking classes at Berkeley before the UCSF classes start. And at that point, the year gets very intense. Suddenly you're taking a lot of classes at both campuses. And we really try to front load the coursework in the fall. And this is because at that point the capstone projects haven't really gotten up to speed, and so students can spend more time on classes. And there's also the problem with any educational project, you need to know everything at the start before you can begin anything. And so by having a lot of front-loaded classes, it means that you have the background to do a lot more work on the capstone project in the spring. And then by May, Berkeley classes have ended, and students only have a few classes at UCSF, and they're able to spend a lot more time, as much as say 20 or 30 hours a week on their capstone project during that last part of the year. So the biggest question that I get asked is who we are. What does an MTM student look like? And I think one of the things that's really important is there's no single profile of an MTM student. They come from all sorts of backgrounds, and that's really one of the things that's so important and so valuable about the program. So this is our current cohort, and as I said, some of them are here, and we'll be able to talk about their experiences a bit. But let's look at their background. A lot of people ask, is it just for bioengineers? And the answer is no. That bottom bar on this graph is the light green, shows the proportion of students that are bioengineering or biomedical engineering. And yes, it's the largest proportion of the class, but it's becoming a smaller and smaller percentage. At this point, it's not even half of the class. The rest of the students come from other engineering backgrounds, mechanical engineering, EECS, chemical engineering, and then more and more students are coming from life science backgrounds. So these will be molecular cell biology, integrative biology, different biological disciplines, who are finding that they really want to have a healthcare influence on healthcare and want to work in this innovation space. Even though they don't have that engineering background, these students are incredibly successful in the program. And the top, the brown bar on this graph is the proportion of students with clinical backgrounds. And this is also a growing proportion of our student body. More and more students, either medical students or practicing MDs, registered nurses. This is a growing part of the curriculum. And this is really important to us as a program. One thing I'll also say is that the students are both international and U.S. Currently, I believe it's about 80% U.S. students, but we have no quotas on international students. The proportion gets made up by who the most appropriate applicants are. And it's really important that we have this mix, because there's no single skill that every team needs. Teams are stronger when they have a range of people who know different things on the team. And more importantly, the most valuable learning that happens in the MTM, and I would actually say that this is probably true in most educational experiences, your most valuable learning comes not from the classes, not from the professors, but from your peers. And so having peers with diverse backgrounds, with diverse skill sets, that is what makes the educational experience so successful. And I can say with absolute confidence that your peers in the MTM will be exceptional people to work with. And that's born on the history of the past years, that we really get great people in the program. And by working with that range of people, everyone learns a lot more. So what are the students here for? And here I'm going to ask some of the students who are here to maybe talk for a minute or two about what they're doing and why they're here. And I think that most students come because they want the MTM to serve to accelerate their career, open new career pathways. One of the things that I think is becoming more apparent in industry is that master's degrees are becoming more and more common. So plenty of jobs where they previously might have hired someone with a bachelor's degree, now they're getting so many applicants with master's degrees that it becomes just a barrier to entry. And I know that from talking to alumni, I know that from talking to people in industry who run teams, that they really like the idea of people with these specialized master's degrees, because they know a lot of things that otherwise will take years to learn on the job. And so engineers or people who come into a team with some understanding of the big picture, some understanding of the regulatory challenges that lie ahead, some understanding of how finances work, are really in a much better position to help contribute to a project in a way that brings the whole project forward. So those are a big part of what our students are doing. But now I'd like to invite some of them to just talk about what it is, what their background is, and what it is brought them to the MTM. So.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Siobhan. I'm here in the MTM program right now, obviously, but I just came out of undergraduate in mechanical engineering at MIT. And what attracted me to the MTM program was first just the title. I really like the idea of translational medicine. And I know from experience that it takes a very long time for things to get from idea to conception to the marketplace. And I also spent the summer before coming to the MTM program working in an industry job. Which is something that I could have gotten coming right out of undergrad as a mechanical engineer. But something that I realized very early on was that innovation isn't happening at these very large companies. It's generally happening in very small companies who become successful, and then the big companies buy them. And we were actually working on a second iteration of a catheter that maps the heart. And that kind of got me realizing that, if I want to really make innovation in healthcare, I had to learn these different ideas. It wasn't good enough to just be an engineer and know what principles are right, but it's really figuring out, what the customer wants from a business side and understanding how does it, function in clinical practice. And that's something that I guess I realized the summer before I came, and when I was deciding I didn't know all of this, but also another thing I learned from coming here is how crucial it is to know the right people. As Moose said, having a cohort with, X number of doctors and many people coming out of industry, it's been huge for me to understand, what do I want to do next year or what do I want to do in my future. That's me, Siobhan.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael. I graduated from UC Berkeley in 2015. My major was electrical engineering and computer science, mainly computer science. After graduating, I spent a gap year traveling and working at several medical device and diagnostic companies, mainly from the software side. And my motivation for joining this program is to get a little bit more context around the non-engineering side of things. I feel like I'm pretty deep in terms of technical skill, but there's so much that you have to do if you want to innovate or interested in entrepreneurship in the medical device space. It's not enough to just know how to make the product. There's a lot of product management, there's a lot of business analysis, all these higher level things that I felt like I didn't get in the undergrad program. And so I feel like MTM does a really good job. As Moose mentioned, you get access to Berkeley Haas classes, which is pretty good business classes here at Berkeley. And just overlaying engineering with regulatory, business, clinical, and a lot of just soft skills as well. So that's me. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Stephanie. I graduated in 2014 from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign with a degree in materials engineering, and I spent the 2 years after graduation working in the biopharmaceutical industry. That was great at seeing, I was in a rotation program there, so I got to see a lot of different aspects from project management to regulatory, as well as some of the nitty-gritty R&D development. So seeing that experience and seeing what it meant from a large company, I really am driven by this taking R&D bench work and biology and great findings and bringing it to people, so this idea of translation. And I didn't feel like I was as close to it in a big company. So I took this year to explore the options, especially being in the Bay Area. I think that's the greatest advantage of this program too, is you're with all these people. You're near UCSF. You're in Berkeley. You're close by all these hospitals and other facilities that allow you to have a good handle on translational medicine and see where you can take place and get active in. So that's a little bit on my background. I've really enjoyed the opportunity to get involved in the entrepreneurship classes here, as well as network with all my awesome colleagues.
Great, thank you.
I'm Zane. I graduated just this past May from UC Berkeley with a degree in bioengineering. I came to this program because I did a lot of interdisciplinary learning in undergrad, and I wanted one degree to fit them all together. So I'm interested in eventually going into the policy and regulations of biomedical devices and pharmaceutical products. And even though as an undergrad I did a lot of the technical development there, I didn't really get to see how the next steps were. And this program has really taught me how that works. both through coursework at UCSF, one of the best medical schools in the world, at UC Berkeley, which gives you the engineering expertise, and also through talking to all the people that we have access to in our network, from alumni to all the industry contacts that are available to us, and also just networking with our cohort altogether. There are so many people who come from a pharma background who can speak about that experience, and people coming from the medical background who can talk about what responsibility actually is. It's a great opportunity, I think, for any student who wants to take the next step from academia into something that's more applied, something that could make more impact, to get that 1 year to learn that experience.
Great, thank you.
Well, I'm Rachel. I don't know if you can hear me. That's where I should go. Anything I say will probably be a little redundant now because I'm also a straight out of undergrad bioengineer. But I will say the one thing that really drew me to this program was the fact that it wasn't all straight out of undergrad bioengineers. The fact that there are people here who are twice my age in the next room. I hope you heard that. No, but honestly, people from such diverse backgrounds, people who know so much about medicine because they've spent 7 years being an emergency medicine physician, and then people who just sold their company for $500 million because they're so entrenched in the business world. So that was basically my motivations for coming, meeting these cool people.
Thanks so much to all of you. And I also have one of our students, Arjun, is calling in, so I'm going to unmute you, Arjun, if you have a second, but if you're having connection problems, just let me know.
Okay, everyone, my name is Arjun. I originally joined the program because I was very passionate about translating medical technologies into the clinical space. At the MTM program, I would say the my greatest experience has been learning from so many talented people, so many different crowds. Shaban just mentioned that she was Meki, and you would think that I'm Meki. So I have learned so much from Shaban over the last few weeks here, and you a very collaborative environment. So you discuss a lot with your peers. So I would say that there's great value in the program.
Great, thank you very much.
The conference has been muted.
Whoops. That's an idea of the different backgrounds that our students gave, and I hope this will get you thinking about questions that people would like to ask. I see a couple of questions that have come in, most of which that I will answer, although if any of the students want to talk about their involvement with clinics, that'd be great. So what do students do in the program? I guess that as I've said, the capstone project is the major piece of what's going on. And you heard that from the students talking about the experiences they have coming into their capstone projects. And really, we're hoping that the capstone project are working towards a real unmet need. So as I said, it's the centerpiece of the program. It's the centerpiece of the other classes that students take. And the way it works, those capstone projects can be working on all different pieces. One sec, someone just chatted they're having a hard time seeing the chat. Is there?
None of us can see the chat.
Interesting. Okay.
But we can see it up there.
I'm just worried that other people can't see the people.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess there's no way for people to chat about
Not seeing the chat.
no problem. I'm terribly sorry. Well, you can send emails and I'll try to respond to them afterwards if you can't see the chat. It should be off to the side somewhere, but maybe it's a Mac thing.
Or maybe it's a call-in thing. I can't get it either.
Interesting.
None of us are called in.
All right. No, it shouldn't be that. Anyway, we'll carry on. Because some people are seeing it. I'm seeing some chat coming in. So the capstone projects, one of the things that's a little bit different from this program versus some of the others out there is that our capstone projects come to us from outside mentors. And generally these mentors are clinicians at UCSF who have an idea for a medical innovation that they simply don't have the bandwidth to advance in their lab. And so our students are really doing the hands-on work to make that happen. This year we have 9 capstone teams. 4 of these are returning projects. These are projects that have gone on elsewhere. These are projects that have done some work last year and now they're back. And this is something that really lets us move projects much farther along. In other projects, other programs like ours, the emphasis is on needs finding and the early stage of identifying a good innovation to happen. And that is absolutely the most critical step. If you don't identify the correct need, nothing else will be successful. But if that is where you start, if you start from finding a need, what we've discovered is there's a real limit to how far any team can get in 9 months. And so our emphasis is on having students see the range of different outcomes of a project, see the challenges that come up 2 years later when you've got your first round of funding and now need to do something else. Range of challenges that come up as you're actually planning to implement your project in a hospital and suddenly are faced with all sorts of hurdles there. So by having different projects that have come to us at different stages, we're able to show all of those different aspects. So some students are working on early stage prototypes. Some are doing, say, user interface design. They have a program that works, but they need to see how will clinicians interact with this to be successful. Some of these are preparing ideas for clinical trials. And as I said, all these projects get integrated into the rest of the curriculum. Someone just asked a very good question about who owns the IP. And really it varies by project. So the IP that a student generates within their own thought process, students actually own those because they're fee-paying students. But a project that has come from an academic lab where a UCSF professor has the idea and brings the students in, then that project is originally, or the IP for that project comes from that lab, and that's where it starts out. Yeah.
I was just going to say that when they come to present about the different projects and you're kind of deciding which project you want to go into, it's a great experience because there are more projects than there are the whole MTM cohort can go into. So it's a great time to ask questions about, like, what is happening with the IP, like how does your team work and stuff like that. So it's not something that's kind of completely solidified, but you can get those questions answered as you go through the program.
That's a great point, and it varies by project. I mean, we have had MTM students get their names on patents out of the project, and in that case, it really depended on the individual contribution. That it's not just because you were in the room, you get your name on the patent, but the students who really, they were taking the technical lead and they developed the intellectual property. The faculty are generally fairly generous with that. Now, a question of, do the teams need to go through the Office of Technology Licensing? Yes, if the project happens in any university lab, then the University Technology Office gets involved. Some of the projects are happening with outside companies. There it's a little trickier. There the IP is clearly owned by the company. They've agreed to allow our students access to it for the purposes of their education. But there certainly is no transfer of the IP to the students just because they're working on the project. And one of the questions that, someone just asked, do students team up? Yes, absolutely. The team is critical. So generally a capstone team is 3 to 4 MTM students, and then whatever the mentorship team the mentor has in place. The mentors are generally very busy. This is often a very small part of what they're doing. And so, again, your best learning will come from your teammates, from sitting there trying to solve a problem that you have to work through together. That's the way we found is a really important part of team learning. And realistically, that's the way work happens in industry, that very few people just get given a whole project and told to take it away and come back when it's done. Someone asked about, can students continue their projects? I'll get to that in a second. The projects get selected. I know some of the students talked about this a little bit before. The projects come to us, to the MTM program over the summer, and we vet them a little bit to make sure that they actually are translational medicine and that they have a lot of good learning opportunities in them. And then the mentors pitch the projects to the students in the first weeks of the program. And at that point, it's really trying to sort out which students are interested in what type of project. And the teams need different things. The mentors need different things. If it's an early prototype of a mechanical device, they're really wanting the mechanical engineers. If they've got a data project, then they're really excited about the students with software backgrounds. Some projects have a real need for clinicians, that they need someone who can interface with clinical staff. So we try to build that team. We look at the student interest, we share resumes with the mentors, and then we work with the mentors to say, okay, here's the skills you need. And then the MTM program builds the actual teams, that we sit there and say, here is the set of teams that will make the most students happy as possible. That we can't just say, yeah, you can have whichever is your first choice, because you might end up with 12 students on one project. So we're trying to build the teams that give the mentors the most of the skills that they need, while really keeping the students' interests at the forefront. That's the most important thing for us as we're building these teams. And then once within the team, then it's up to the mentor whether the PI is the primary mentor or whether there's a postdoc in the lab or a research associate who handles a lot of the project. So that's an overview of the projects, and I'll get to some of the questions about what comes later in a minute when I'm talking about outcomes. But I know one of the biggest questions I get is about admissions. How does one get into the program? And there's a lot of questions, and I know a lot of people have very specific questions, so just recognize I won't be able to get to them all. I strongly suggest that you go dig through the website. There's a lot of information there if you go through the FAQs and the admissions FAQs. See, the deadline there is January 6th. So when it comes to getting into the program, I mean, this is totally corny and trite, but the most important thing is to actually apply. And by that I mean get your application started in plenty of time that you can ask your letter of recommenders to write you letters in a respectful amount of time. So I get a lot of applications that are started on after January 1st, and they don't get finished because people send off the reviewers who are away at a conference and aren't able to write their recommendation. So I would strongly suggest, if you're pretty sure you want to apply, start your application now, and even if before you do your essays, before you do all the other bits, go to the screen about recommendations and send the request to your recommenders. And I'll talk in a minute about what that means, what makes for a good recommendation. Then there's the essays, and there's two essays, a statement of purpose and a personal history. And I recognize that those prompts are totally confusing. These are sort of come from the university. But essentially, if you write basically the same essay for both, you're missing a chance to make a compelling point about why you should be in the program. So with the personal history, we want to know who you are, what brings you to the point where you're interested in the program. And with the statement of purpose, we really want to know, why is this program what you need for your educational goals? And so I see a lot of times where the two essays are essentially treated interchangeably, and they can be quite good essays, but I would suggest that you're missing an opportunity to make your case. So try to think about it that way: who you are, why you're a good fit for the program, and then why is the program essential to your ultimate goals. So what is admissions like? First of all, it is a very competitive applicant pool. We get excellent applicants to the program. And I don't mean that to be intimidating at all. I suspect that there are very many excellent applicants on this call. And it's a real pleasure to get these applications because the people are amazing. All parts of the application are considered, so we don't have a set formula for admissions. We don't look and say, well, this has a good GRE, so they're in the program. We really do read the essays. We really do look at the work experience. As you've seen, there's this huge range of student profiles. Someone asked on the chat whether that represented all of the people in the program. No, it didn't. A graph with every possible major in the program would be a mess because so many schools name their degree a single thing. So we've pooled them together. So you don't look to see, am I the perfect fit, but really ask if you think you have a lot to offer and whether the program's a good fit for you. But that said, grades are important. Grades are a real assessment of how you perform in an academic setting. And it's not to say you need to have a 4.0 to get in. I mean, our average is about a 3.65. Many students do get in with lower grades, but it's important to have other factors to ameliorate those grades. Somebody asked me about grades that are lower than a 3.0. That's a very hard bar to cross. It's not impossible, but it's difficult. The university sets that as a limit, and in order to get your application accepted with lower than a 3.0, it needs to be approved by a dean, and you'd have to make a case to the dean of why the rest of your application is so impressive that it overwhelms that. So people with substantial work experience and great test scores and lots of other things, maybe so. But if it's simply that you had a bad first year and now 2 years later you've done much better, that's going to be a hard bar to cross. Test scores, again, the average GRE scores are in about the 86th percentile for verbal and quantitative. Again, plenty of people get in with lower scores than those, generally because they have other aspects of their application that make them really compelling. So we really do read all aspects of it. Your recommendations are really important, and a good recommendation is one from someone who knows you personally. So think carefully who you ask for a letter of recommendation, and this is not just for this program, it's for any graduate program you apply to. Think about a letter that says, this student, he was real smart, he got an A in my class, I think he'd be good in your program, is an okay letter. It does you no harm at all, but it doesn't rise to the bar of the sort of letters we get from saying, this student came into my lab as a freshman, and within 6 months she was actively participating in lab meetings, and 2 years later she came up with a new process that has actually substantially advanced the research in our lab. We do get letters like that. There are plenty of people who do that sort of thing. And the most compelling thing there is that the letter writer, the PI, knew the student well enough to have these memories of her and to write that sort of letter. So think carefully about who you get to write it based on who knows you well and knows well how you will succeed in a program. So letters can come from your faculty, they can come from your supervisors in positions, things like that. And then the essays you write are really helpful to us to understand whether you're a good fit for the program. Not whether you do well here, but whether we are offering what you are looking for in an education. Because we recognize this is an investment in your future, and we want to be offering what you're looking for. To that point, we get a lot of questions about financial aid. And yes, we recognize that this is an expensive investment in your future. The MTM is not a PhD program that's fully funded. And this is something that people know, that some graduate programs are not only funded but pay you a stipend. Those are generally PhD programs. And so we do have financial aid available for the program. But it certainly is not full rides with stipends, which I know some people are looking for. The aid gets divided amongst a couple of different pots. Some of it is to help bring specific skills in, so people with experience and advanced degrees is something that we try to provide some support for. But the bulk of the aid is provided based on financial need, and that's determined by the UCSF Financial Aid Office. Unfortunately, this requires the U.S. federal FAFSA form, which is only available to U.S. citizens and permanent residents. And so that means that a large part of our aid is simply not available to international applicants. And I recognize that makes it a huge burden for people, but these are things that we really don't have much control over. Occasionally we have specified pots of money for things like people with global health expertise, but those are kind of one-off deals where we get a particular piece of funding. So I would suggest to you that as you're applying, start looking for outside funding, especially international applicants. I know that there are some countries that have funds available for students to go study specific skills. So check with those sort of programs in your home country, because we don't have unlimited funds. The amount of financial aid we have is very limited, and we do the best that we can. But where does this program lead people? And this is a question that, is I think the primary one on a lot of your minds is where will this program lead you afterwards? Our students go to many different places. I'll show in a second. We do the best we can to help students find a job. We certainly don't have a job lined up for each student afterwards, despite that our students are very successful. So Berkeley and UCSF both have career services. One of the things that's nice is that Berkeley especially is a large and school with a very desirable applicant pool. So a lot of companies come to do on-campus recruiting. So that's an opportunity for students to meet with employers. We also work with the Fung Institute with their career people, and they offer very important career advice such as preparing resumes, getting ready for interviews, getting ready for negotiations. These are services where, because it's through this smaller Fung program, you actually have direct access to a career counselor, and that's the so that can happen. Those are resources that can help people to go in their job search. And the other thing that's really important is the Bay Area. One of the students mentioned how exciting it is to be in the Bay Area. And frankly, that's one of the big things that the MTM program has to offer, that it is a real hotbed for innovation in the medical community. And so there are seminar series for entrepreneurs that the MTM students can go to. There's networking events. There's all sorts of things, people coming to campus to present their research. And these are great chances for you as a student to go talk to these people. And those are the sort of conversations that lead to jobs. I mean, we just heard recently from one of our alums that that's how she got her job, was she happened to be seated next to someone at a conference who'd never heard of the MTM before, and after the first break, she'd explained it well enough that the person asked for her card, and she's now fairly high up in that company because of that outreach. So where do our graduates end up? There we go. Whoops. They end up in a whole bunch of different places. So many of them end up in large companies. It's those are simply who hires more. Our students have been very successful in consulting, and this is especially in boutique life science consulting firms that hire our alumni because they really do have a great view of the big picture the consultants are trying to work on. Many of our students the ones who are clinical go back to clinical practice. And then someone asked about medical school. A lot of our alumni do go on to medical school. It varies by year, but people have found it to be good training for medical school. And then a number of them do start small companies. And this is a question that we get a lot. How many of them take their capstone team and turn it into a company? And I would say it's not a lot. We do not see that as the goal of the capstone team. We see the primary learning there to be what we're after, and that it's okay to walk away from the capstone project and go on to your next thing after that. But a few of the capstone projects do turn into a company, and usually that's when the capstone team has done the work that enables the mentor to go out and seek funding, and then the natural person to hire to actually do this is the MTM student who's there already. So this is examples of where our students end up, and then the alumni network is becoming more and more important to MTM students as they go through the program. So we now have about 130 alumni on the market, and this is a degree that did not exist 6 years ago, 5 years ago. No one had ever heard of a Master of Translational Medicine. Now, as those 130 alumni are out there, they are building that brand, and frequently companies who've hired an MTM alum come back the next year and hire another one. There's a couple of these life science consulting firms now hire at least one MTM graduate every year. There's a medical device incubator in the Bay Area that's the biggest employer of our graduates. I think they've hired 10 of them. So this is something where our students are incredible, and they make great alumni and are our best marketing for the program to employers. And we try to have we have social events to try and connect MTM students with the alumni. So that's a chance for students to talk to the alums to get an idea of how their job search is working. And alums come back to share their own experiences. So these are all parts of the program. And then the student experience, again, I've mentioned these networking opportunities. This is something that a lot of this sort of learning and networking doesn't show up directly within the classes. This isn't something that we say, oh, and today you will network. But these opportunities are available because the Bay Area and these two universities are so vibrant. It really does provide great experiences. People have asked about outside work during the program. And our official line is it's very difficult. The program is too intense, and so much, the time is so fragmented by being on two campuses that it's really hard to arrange to work during the program. It's not to say that some students don't do it, especially jobs that are very flexible, such as being resident advisors in the dorms, or some students who know researchers around are able to keep working on research projects that they can do outside of class time. But it would be very hard to hold down a job with set hours during the program. But in terms of the rest of the program, I mean, I would say, get used to commuting, get used to being flexible. People often ask me, what's the biggest market of success in the program? And I would say it's flexibility and a willingness to try new experiences. That it isn't much like actually working in industry. There isn't a set path to do these things and you will be successful. It's very much here's a bunch of pieces to this, and some of them are going to work and some of them aren't, and you put them all together and you've gained an incredible amount of experience. But again, like I say, the students are your own best network. The students are learning from each other. They're learning about opportunities from each other. They're practicing interview skills with each other. All of these things are what contribute to the real value of the MTM at the end. Do any of you students want to add any comments on student experiences or housing or any of those sort of things that might help people understand?
So I would just like to add that, when he says like taking advantage of your time here and stuff like that, it's very important. I'd say that, one of the most quote unquote successful people in our program thus far has been someone who took, it kind of put off the electives till next semester, but is looking at different, startup opportunities and different opportunities to kind of present her ideas and stuff like that. And it's been really cool to see, that entrepreneurial aspect of the Bay Area through that lens. Like seeing that there are so many different opportunities here. Like coming from Boston, I kind of thought that, you kind of had to have a PhD to do something super effective, and you kind of realize here that people have ideas and make things happen in very short periods of time. And I don't know, it's really cool to see that. And like as Moose said, the networking opportunity is huge.
One other thing, okay, a little planning going on over here. Another thing about that entire thing that Siobhan was talking about is the idea that we're all starting from completely different points and we're all like ending at completely different points. But it's all about whatever you want to make the program. So if you're interested in something more academic, you can make the program something more academic. And if you're interested in something more entrepreneurial, you can find the same amount of people and the same intensity of experience all around the place. And that's the best part about this program. I mean, I know a lot of us applied to very similar programs on the surface, but after being in this program, it has become very clear that this one is very, very different, for good.
All right, and changing the conversation and pace a little bit, moving on to housing. A good way that we were able to connect and find housing was creating that Facebook group and being invited to it prior to getting on campus. And so a lot of us talked before or messaged before and found other ways to connect with each other and find housing around campus. I personally live off campus with Rachel, who you heard from earlier.
That's me.
So we actually connected by going to the end of year presentation, which I highly recommend. And we met there, and from there ended up living together. So highly recommended that you reach out to your cohort members to worry about or to figure out housing. And it doesn't have to be on campus, so it's really nice to be on Berkeley's campus because most of your class is here. But some of your projects will bring you to UCSF. So like my capstone team and our mentor is over in UCSF, and you strike a balance. You strike a balance of being here or there. So it's not imperative that you're on either campus. You figure it out. It's not impossible. The bus system works, and you can get around fairly easily. It's just one of those things that you learn when you get here, and you learn really quickly, and then you kind of go from there. So hopefully that helped.
Yeah, there are students who live on the San Francisco campus in their campus housing. There are students who live on Berkeley's iHouse. And then there's even people who live in like Oakland and Emeryville and all these like surrounding places. But it's all connected by the bus system, by the BART. And it is in essence a really small area that we're in, even though it's kind of confusing sometimes. So in the beginning it's very scary, but all of the transportation stuff eventually works out really well, and now we feel really cool and experty.
Yeah, any other questions? I see, do you get time to hang out with friends, considering coursework, work, work and rest? Is rest?
No, not for Michael. Okay, Michael does it all.
Yeah, so I'm actually working a part-time job, like 20 hours a week while doing this program. I would not recommend it. Coming from like school life balance to school work balance, so I wouldn't recommend working while going to school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would say, like, for other students, like myself, I found it to be, for graduate school, just to be different. Like, in engineering, like, I did problem sets every week for every class, and stayed up till, like, 2 a.m., and, now I do sleep, which is exciting, and I get to learn about things that I'm really interested in. And, it's been really cool. I mean, aside from these, like, we don't really have all these things on the East Coast, mountains and snow. Like, we had lots of snow, but not in Tahoe.
We don't have much snow.
And so, like, but, like, going to different places over the weekend, so I definitely been able to kind of have the friend and boyfriend and hanging out experience along with the school and getting stuff done.
And you really do build a great network with your cohort. Like, I feel very close to them.
Yeah.
Only met them for a little bit, but you really grow close with them, and you get to learn with them and have fun. And
A lot of fun, actually.
yeah, so there's like Napa, you can go up north. There's tons of things always going on in San Francisco, and then you get to explore Monterey.
Yeah, that's
Anywhere, just kind of go and have fun. And I think I've gotten a lot more sleep in grad school than I did in undergrad, so don't worry about that. You will sleep. You will find time. You will network. It all happens somehow.
Yeah, and the program's designed to have sort of varying levels of intensity. As I showed, that there's a sort of month at the beginning of the program where UCSF class hasn't started yet, and that's really a good thing because it means students do have time to get to know each other and not just start working all the time. And then it gets really intense around the end of the semester, which is kind of the way school just works. And then, in the spring, it will be intense, but then as the Berkeley classes start to wind down, then there's more time to do the things that you, meant to do when you moved to California and didn't get around to. But as I've said over and over again, the learning you get from your peers, from driving up to Napa or going to Tahoe with them, is equally valuable, to the learning that you do while sitting in a classroom. So.
I just wanted to add that the cohort that we get in this program is usually very inherently social. Having been at Berkeley for 4 years before this, I knew a couple of the previous cohorts, and my friends who moved on to the program seem to have spent a lot more time partying / having fun in grad school than they ever did during undergrad, and I can attest to that now that I'm in this program too. Our cohort, there's a good number of us who spend every Monday night going and having tacos, and every Thursday night having board games, and then every Friday there's like a movie thing, and there's like other fun stuff happening during the weekend. So that just kind of goes to show that you can definitely fit life work balance, life work school balance within the program very well, and it is very fun, more fun than undergrad.
Great.
I would also say, like, something that's really cool about the program is how we've kind of become a little bit like a family. Like, I know coming from, far away, there are people who are coming straight out of Berkeley, and they know people around, but they still have welcomed us in, and, like, we all kind of support each other, for many of us being, oceans away from home. For some of us being oceans away from home. But, but yeah, I don't know, that's been really cool, too.
Yeah. So, and I think this is I say this every year that this is the best class ever, but I would say these students are exceptional, but this is very much the experience of students last year too. That I think that the notion of throwing a bunch of really smart, really creative people together and forcing them to do hard things for a year builds, it gets people to build real bonds, and I think because the people are smart and creative, they have a lot of fun too. And that, I look at that as one of the real successes of this education. So that's been an hour, so I'm going to say if anyone's dropping off, I won't be offended at all. But I'm happy to stay here and keep chatting for as long as people want, and if any of you need to go ahead. I did see, and of course, my email's here. Please feel free to email me with questions. This time of year, that's mostly what I do, is answer questions from potential students. Arjun, I'm going to unmute you because I see you have your hand raised. But also, here's a couple of interesting questions about where are students coming from and what are the classes like. And I think these are good questions. Students are coming from really all over the country and all over the world. We end up with a highest proportion of students coming from Berkeley undergrad, and that's simply because Berkeley undergrads know about it more. And then as it gets found out at a different school, we start to get more students from there. But we do have, and the international students primarily come, Canada seems to be our biggest source of international students. But yeah, I would say there's not really a set place where they're coming from. Arjun, I'm going to unmute you because I see your hand up. Go ahead. Or not. Okay. So the other questions, classes have a focus on final exam or projects. Most graduate classes are project-based. And here's something about graduate school, not just the MTM, but in general, is graduate school is different than undergraduate in that there isn't the same emphasis on, did you get everything right to get a grade? In most graduate classes, you're treated as much more of an adult. If you get the work done, you're probably going to do well. And so grades become, I think, less important. And the project is where the learning happens. It's not as much about, being able to validate that you learned X, Y, and Z, but it's you getting to a place where you can demonstrate that you learned a lot. Other questions? How long is the program in general? It starts around mid-August, August 15th or so, and it ends mid-June. So this year it'll end June 16th. And the end of the program is a final symposium. Students who are accepted into the program will all be invited. If you happen to be in the Bay Area, it's a good way to see what might be coming up for you in the next year. But this is really what we build up to, is getting these capstone projects ready for a final symposium. Because it's one thing to have to write a paper that you email off to someone at midnight. It's nothing to have to stand up in front of a room full of strangers and talk about what you did. That is wonderful for focusing people's attention. Someone asked a good question about the balance between biotech, pharma, and medtech. And this is a great question. The balance is heavily skewed towards medical devices. And that is not in any way a statement about what's the most important part of translational medicine. What it is a statement about is how quickly you can get up to speed and make progress in a device project. That a student who's clever with building stuff can pretty quickly look at a project and start to understand what it's doing and start to make contributions in a way that simply can't happen with a molecular development process. Yeah.
But I would say that there are classes that are able to teach those things as well. So although it's not in the capstone class, I know some people who are more focused on that.
Yes, that is very, it's a very good point. That we teach that, we teach about pharma things, and there's a lot of portability between them. The capstone projects are where the focus is really on devices. Someone else asked the question, are students able to see unmet need at firsthand? I think you mean did students get into the clinic, and that's a question people ask. It really depends on the capstone projects.
Actually, I can speak to that because we're working on a capstone project where we, with multiple sclerosis, so I actually was able to shadow a physician in the clinic, and part of our project is working on creating like a clinical study that we would then be able to implement in the clinic. And I know a lot of people are working firsthand in the labs and all of that stuff as well.
We also had an offer from one of the physicians who presented to us in one of our classes to follow him in clinic and watch some surgeries. So we get to interface with a lot of clinicians, which is a way to define unmet needs as well.
Yeah. There are 2 classes we have to take in the fall semester and fall quarter. One at UCSF called Anti-Med School, which is literally bringing in clinicians from UCSF and elsewhere to talk about why they need people other than MDs to solve their problems for them. There's another class at Berkeley called Unmet Clinical Needs, which is pretty much the same thing, although it's skewed more towards technology just because of the nature of the school. So if you don't get to see it in clinic, you'll learn about it in class.
Yeah, and again, this is where the opportunities exist that aren't necessarily thrown at you. That asking the clinician who's a mentor on your project if they can help you get into the clinic is a perfectly acceptable thing. And most of them are amenable to it, provided that the scheduling can work out. But you are a student at UCSF. You have to go through tuberculosis tests and a bunch of other paperwork to get access to the clinic. But once you do, then it's not particularly difficult to find these opportunities. So the students, I would say the students who are thinking they'd like to go to med school afterwards are the ones who work the hardest at making those opportunities happen, which is sort of appropriate. That turns out the students who are halfway through their medical residency don't usually spend much time. They think they've seen quite enough of that. But so again, you'll notice that the actual unit load for the program is only 24 units, which is by design not a hugely onerous load. And the reason for that is that we want the program to be flexible enough for specific students' educational needs. So someone with a clinical background, we don't want to impose upon them a whole bunch of clinical classes that they have to take. Many of our students are really motivated by entrepreneurship. By all means, go take as many classes at the Haas School of Business as you can. Other students are knowing that they want this broader context, but they want to be an engineer. That's their passion. By all means, go take the tissue engineering classes that are offered at Berkeley and spend your time there. We really want that flexibility because we recognize that just as the student body has diverse backgrounds, the people needed to do translational medicine, it requires teams with a lot of varied learning and experience, and we want to make that possible for people. All right, well, I want to thank all of the students who've taken their time to talk to you, and of course, I welcome more questions, and thanks to all of you for participating.
Thank you.